The thing that I say a lot is what makes or breaks the success of a painting company is how busy you are January, February, and March. It all comes down to Q1.
I get a little panicked at the start of summer because I realize winter is coming again, and kind of trying to do all the things necessary to make sure that that's better.
August 1st starts what we call War on Winter. War on Winter really means every quote they go on that's interior or cabinet painting related, they have a conversation with the customer about scheduling.
Welcome to Price, Sell, Paint, the go-to podcast for painting contractors and sales professionals in the painting industry. Hosted by industry experts John Bryant and Michael Murray. This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Price, Sell, Paint. It's another episode with Michael and John. Michael, how are you doing?
Great, man. How are you?
Fantastic. It is end of June here. Crews are finally settled in. Everything's working well. How are you feeling?
Good. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing. Like I'm sure you would relate, but the last 3 months just feel like complete chaos and craziness. And, especially for anybody that's in the northern half of the country, this whole going from just painting inside to also being able to paint outside is always a fun and eventful time of the year. Now that we get to late June here as we're recording, it seems like you start to settle into the rhythm a little bit.
People remember that they can paint both things. It's not that different. But at first it's like, what is this exterior thing you're showing me? I'm only used to inside things.
I don't know about you guys. We've had crazy weather in the Cleveland market this year, just super wet. It was pretty cold too, even up and through early June. And then it instantly in the last 2 weeks here, it switched to 95 Fahrenheit out and 1,000,000% humidity.
Right.
It's crazy.
Sure, you love that.
We've had very not spring weather. I would love for just some 70 sunny dry days, but no, I'm expecting that we're probably going to be painting outside until December or something, based on how the first 6 months went. We'll see.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, today, given where we're at, we're talking about how to stay busy in the winter and the things we can do in the summer to make that happen.
Yep.
And I know it's something that, as long as I've been doing this, I get a little panicked at the start of summer because I realize winter is coming again, and kind of trying to do all the things necessary to make sure that that's better. Last year, I think the team didn't do all the things that we could have. And so this year, we're really trying to get ahead of it. And we hope that anyone who's listening can join us in that journey, because I think there's a bunch of things that we can do now. It's actually going to make that a little bit less difficult. So one of the things I know you guys have done really well, and I want to learn from you today on, is how to sell winter work in the summer. And we've put a few things in place. I've heard of a number of different programs that you can do in order to make this work, but I wanted to get your experience first, and then we can kind of talk about things like Christmas in July and those other marketing initiatives you do. So yeah, how have you done it? I know last year you had a bunch of work booked for January and February. And it was, I think I talked to you in September.
Yeah.
I was jealous. It was great.
Well, I'll say this, that, everyone on our team should be able to recite this because they've heard it so many times that, so not, at this point, I guess I'm speaking to business owners, and I think there's some specific tips we can talk to you about for sales reps in some, maybe these larger companies. But from a business owner's perspective, the thing that I say a lot is what makes or breaks the success of a painting company is how busy you are January, February, and March. It all comes down to Q1 for so many reasons, because, we're typically trying to carry expensive overhead then. And so if we can have more crews that are financially supporting that overhead, we can maybe, break even, maybe even make a little bit of money, or lose less money, however we want to think of that, during that time of year. But it also allows us to keep more of our crew members. For, again, most businesses that have employees, there is a very real scenario that everybody that's working for your company in the fall is not working for your company January, February, because we just don't have as much work because we can't do the exterior work in this part of the climate. And so the more people that we can keep busy in Q1, the more those people can be here next summer when we really need them to be our experienced painters, maybe our crew leaders, and can allow for that growth and expansion. So anyway, so with that thought process in mind, the biggest thing that I would say we do is, generally speaking, August 1st starts what we call War on Winter. War on Winter really means, for our sales reps especially, every quote they go on that's interior or cabinet painting related, they have a conversation with the customer about scheduling. And they let them know that they basically have two options. They can book at the regular price for our next available slot, typically, in that 6 to 10 week window, depending on how busy we are and backlog and things like that. Or they can receive a discount and wait until January or February if they're okay with their project being done after the holidays. And many people are excited about that possibility. We give a discount of 10 to 15%. It is a very real discount. And, on a whatever $10,000 project, you can do that math, it's $1,000. That is saving somebody significant money. And so we do get a really good chunk of work booked starting in August for people that will wait, whatever that is, 5-6 months until January, February.
And it's been successful for you guys.
Very.
You guys book, yeah. So let's maybe unpack that a little bit. And kind of, I have a number of questions about it because I think, well, it sounds like it's working, so I want to learn a bit about that. But so when you're doing this, you're not advertising this. This is just purely people that come in the door, and then they've already got the interest, and so now you're giving them the option.
Yep.
Is that right?
For sure. Yep.
Would you consider marketing that? Have you ever done that before?
We have never done that at that time of year. The only time that we've ever marketed a discount is when we were headed into winter and we were slow, and it was November, and we would put out some emails, social media posts, and things like that, offering, maybe that 10 to 15% discount, book your interior project kind of thing. Otherwise, we'll have some standard discounts that we'll advertise throughout the year, but they're not that aggressive. They're less of a discount.
Gotcha. So you don't advertise it, but you do have the conversation in person. What would you say is the percentage of people that take you up on that offer? You have any idea?
So I would say, if we said, okay, of the people that are booking, right? I do think there's some people that might not have otherwise booked, right? So that's hard to quantify, because again, it's saving $1,000. We might have that price sensitive customer, and I think that's a great tool. So so we can have a conversation depending on the timing of that sales conversation is when this might come up. It might come up in more of a, when do you need this project done type of a conversation. It also might come up in terms of a price objection type of a conversation, right? The customer might say, hey, $10,000 to paint, the inside of my house or whatever is a lot more than I thought it was going to be. I've already got another quote for, maybe $8,500 or whatever that looks like. And you guys are expensive. And we've had episodes on how to handle that. And there's a lot of different things here, but one way to handle that at this time of year is to say, okay, great. So it sounds like price is the main concern. If I could give you everything that we just talked about at a price close to or similar to the price you just described that you got from a competitor, would you be interested in that? And they're going to say, well, yeah, that's the reason I'm having this conversation with you, and I didn't just tell you to leave. And then it's okay, great, I can do that if you're willing to wait until we're not quite so busy in January and February. And then I get to have the conversation about, well, why are we so busy? Maybe it's because we have such a reputation and reviews and experience and all things that a lot of people want us to paint for them, which is why we're also more expensive. But you can have the best of both. You get to have the best painting company with this awesome reputation come paint at your house and save some money, as long as you're willing to wait until we have some room on our calendar to get you in. So that's certainly helpful.
Love it. Yeah. So it's so hard to quantify because you feel like you're capturing. It's not only people that are accepting your quotes. You're actually dealing with people that might not.
I think so.
Accepted it.
So let's go back to your question. I would say it's probably about a third, if I'm guessing. I don't have I don't know that I would keep hard data on that without having to go back and look through when jobs were sold and then produced. It's probably a stat we could keep better, I guess. But anyways, I would like just gut tells me, haven't done this thing for at least 4 or 5 years, that it's probably about a third of customers that we book at that time of year that are somewhere between a fourth and a third would be a good guess as to like, yeah, sure, we'll wait. I'll take that discount. I'll wait.
So, I mean, that's a pretty good numbers. When you do that, how does it work for actually? They sign the job, right? So they say, yeah, let's do it. And then you give them a date out in the future, or how do you handle the actual scheduling?
Yeah. So I mean, every project that we schedule always is given a like week wide window as to when we're going to be at their house, when they book. Unless we have like predetermined beforehand, like let's say somebody's buying a house and, they get the keys on whatever, August 1st, and the movers are coming on August 10th. And with sales rep has had the conversation like, yes, we're going to get this done in that window, in which case we're going to give them, we're going to be there on August 1st or 2nd kind of a thing, just to make sure we get this thing done. Otherwise, every customer we ever book with, when they book, they are told you're scheduled for like the third week of August. And then as we get closer, every week they're getting updates. And then once we get within a 2-week window, they start to get actual dates. But even then, at like 2 weeks out, they get like a 3-day window. Like, so we're starting your project Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday of this week. And then as we get to like that 3 days out, we can start to narrow that down based on all the things that everybody listening already knows, right?
All those those December rains that come through Cleveland.
Well, I mean, I think the biggest thing is, I'd love to say that like we're perfect at figuring out exactly how long a project's going to take and exactly how many employees are going to show up to work every day. But somewhere in there, we aren't always exact.
Yeah. So true. Okay, so you give them the schedule, and then like when you come in, they understand the price, that like everything works. Do you ever have people that try to push you out of that time period? They're like, "Oh, it doesn't actually work. Can we do it in April?"
Oh, later?
Yeah.
Not usually at this point. I guess as we get closer to that January, somebody might say, whatever, something came up, or we're going to be out of town. Can we just move this back to, a month or two? But I'm good. Like, again, that is, as long as it's in Q1, they get that price. If they move it out of Q1, we're going to have a conversation. I can move it into April, but you're now paying without that discount, right, which is still probably discounted because you're now paying on last year's price. And now we're getting into this year's busier season. But I'm not going to get that complicated. You're just not getting that like 10% discount that you see on that quote.
Right. So you pull it back a little bit.
I would say though that like has either never happened or is super rare.
Okay.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Well, I think a big part of this is discounting. Like I know there's probably people listening that are thinking like, "Ooh, discounting! You can never discount.
Yeah.
Like that's a bad idea." And I know I know your opinion, but I think it's worth explaining a little bit how we get here, because you said it's a real discount. Mm-hmm. Maybe explain that a little bit for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, so there's a lot of stuff that happens in home improvement industry, really like in any industry, to be honest, right? Where we just inflate the price and then provide a discount. And that's, again, it's a little, because in home improvement there's very little like price transparency. We don't have any idea what this should cost. You can get away with it, but again, it happens all the time. Like we know that you book an airline flight, like depending on when you book it and things like that, the price can be wildly different. And so again, it's not specific to our industry, but when I say a real discount, it is like I'm not inflating the price to then offer a discount. Right. Again, you have two options. Like here's price A, again, let's call it $10,000, which that's the project. We can do it in 6 to 8 weeks or whatever. Or price B, let's call it $9,000. You just have to wait until January. And
so are you giving up all your profit at this point, or
not all of it, but some of it, but really with the intention that I get to keep some painters busy at that time of year. And that's huge. And because if I have the more crew leaders I have, like come next April, that means the more work we're going to be able to do at a much higher rate next summer. The profit is really made in, like for us, the exterior season on all projects. It's not just on exterior projects because we're so busy that we can just, be more confident in our pricing and things like that. Oh, the other thing it allows me to do though is, so our goal is to book half of January and half of February before Thanksgiving, ideally before November. Because then when I'm having conversations with people in November, I should already be booked for November and December, because that's within that 6 to 8 week window, like when we're normally booked out. And if I'm already booked for half of January and February, I don't have to offer discounts to fill in that part of the calendar. Because it's like, look, January or December's booked, November's booked. Let's just pretend it's like the second week of November. And so our next available slot is like the second half of January. And if you don't want to take that one, then you can wait till the second half of February. And I have all this confidence that if you don't want it at this price, no big deal. I'm going to go on another quote tomorrow, and they're probably going to take it. But we know that as we get to November, the number of quotes for our sales team significantly starts to go down because people don't want us in their house around the holidays. And they're just not thinking about home improvement projects as much then. But because I'm already halfway booked up, I have all this confidence that I'm going to sell enough work in January and February. So I'm much more like confident in my price at that time of year. And I'm not offering discounts then, or not as much, hopefully.
Yeah. It's not desperate, is what I'm hearing. Like you can be a little more confident in your price.
Yeah. Sorry to cut you off. And we think of things as like, what's the total money that we need to get on all the work we do in this month? Like, let's just pretend like, if like 100% is par, meaning, we'll just use real numbers. So let's just pretend you charge $80 an hour. It's just like, okay, the goal is to get $80 an hour on all the projects we do. Well, one way to do that is just charge everybody $80 an hour for all the projects you do in this month. That works. Nothing wrong with that. Or you could charge $85 an hour as like your normal price. And then some customers, you might even be able to charge $75 an hour. All things being equal, if I sell a 100-hour project at 85 and a 100-hour project at 75, they balance out to that 80 that I need. And that's like a simple way, but really like that is the math. That's what we're doing as we head into like these winter months when we are providing these discounts. And some people get that, again, to that example, that $75 an hour price because they booked 4 or 5 months ago and they were willing to wait. And that is exactly what we are doing to fill the winter starting in the beginning of August.
Yeah. I've heard it said before, and I think it works with this, and that's that you never want to give without getting. And a lot of times with discounts, I think where you get into trouble is that people offer discounts for no apparent reason. And it really sets off alarm bells in your prospect customer's mind. Like, how did they just give me a discount for absolutely nothing? Because that means the price should have been lower. And what I like about this so much is that it is a give, right? Like you help us out and we can help you out. And it makes sense to the customer. It makes sense to the business strategy that we have of keeping our people busy in those very critical months. Because without that group of people, we have no foundation for the summer. And like you said, all in a painting business, especially in the northern climate. Now, I'm not experienced in Florida or California. I imagine there's some seasonality though too. Like I still hear and see the impacts of that time between Christmas and Thanksgiving. That kind of those weeks are just dead for leads, and then it starts to pick up again in January. But if you don't have anything planned for January, it can feel like your business is going to die those times. Oh, yeah. Because now you're like, I'm getting nothing. I don't have anything in January. So I really like this approach, and it's just what it is. It rewards that forward thinking. A little bit of forward thinking goes a long way, because I think the chances of you getting another job in the summer because you have more leads to fill that space that goes into January is just so much higher than waiting. So,
well, I don't want to leave the discount conversation real quick. I would say real quick that like I think everybody's willing to discount. right? It's just like if you get desperate enough, you're going to offer a discount. And it's just like it just depends on how long you want to play that staring contest, if you will. You can wait until January and you don't have any work for like the second half of January, and you've got 5 painters, 10 painters, 30 painters, whatever that is. Like somebody doesn't have some work to do. Your choice is between laying off somebody who you really want to have on your team versus not. I bet you're willing to offer a discount. And that's like, again, that is part of the thought of we would not have to offer discounts if we were just okay with the fact that we're just going to have fewer painters in Q1. It's like
Right.
for the sake of argument, we're going to have, I don't know, what, 30, 25, 30, 30 plus painters probably that time of year. And it's just like, if I was okay with like just 20 painters or something, then I wouldn't have to discount. Like it would be no big deal. But then our revenue would be less and our potential for revenue next year would be less and all of those things. And there's no like right or wrong way to do that, just based on, our goals and growth and otherwise, that serves us pretty well.
I think there's one other point though about discounting that we're missing here, and that's that seasonally, and we've talked about this before, and I know it's your belief as well, that seasonally when things are busy, prices should go up.
Yes.
And we need to charge more when demand is higher because, well, we don't have infinite resources here. So it's just a simple supply and demand curve, and that pushes the price up. And I think that that's also a good reason why we can discount for the winter as well. Because a lot of people, I know you're listening and you're thinking, oh, discounting, like just taking all of that profit right off the top, and now I make nothing. And there is like your reasoning for that, keeping people busy, making sure you've got that base for next year. All absolutely true. But the thing I think to make clear here is that we're also discounting off our summer rates. And summer rates are just a little bit higher. And if you are not raising your rates in summer, I would encourage you to do that. I think when demand is high, we need to price our services appropriately. And we can discount off that knowing that demand is going to be lower. And so we're actually giving you a price for a lower demand season.
100%.
Any other comments, thoughts there, Michael?
Yeah, I agree 100%. I think the thing, again, it just goes back to like how macro versus micro of a view. If the thing is like, I cannot lose money on any one project, or I could never break even on one project, then you're going to have a hard time discounting. If you see it from that monthly perspective, that example I gave a few minutes ago of that, like, $80 an hour, 75 versus 85, then you're like, okay, yeah, I guess maybe I could get on board with there's some discounts within the month. And then if you zoom out again and you're like, now let's take that same concept over an annual like plan. That's the point you just made, which is at certain times of the year, I'm at 85, again, just to use that example. And at other times of the year, I'm at 75. And it all comes out in the wash at 80 because I know my numbers really well and I budget really well and I, use the spreadsheets and all the things. Then you can really start to understand like this concept. And you can take it even to another level, which is starting to get a lot more complicated of like, okay, now what about over a multi-year period where I'm trying to like develop people into roles for leadership and otherwise over a couple-year plan? And it's like, yeah, I'm willing to break even or lose money on a few projects in January or February to keep what might be the 2 or 3 years from now field manager busy, because if I don't, they're going to leave.
For sure.
But at the very least,
so
you should be able to understand it from a monthly or annual perspective.
It's a longer term vision, longer term view of what you're doing. Yeah, it definitely makes sense. So, can we move on for the discounting?
Move on from
Definitely
the
a couple more
discounting.
questions
Yep,
about
because
marketing.
there's specific other things that are very important to this.
Yes. So, one of the things you mentioned is that you don't market this, and we've heard of other great ideas. I think like Christmas in July, other ways of positioning this such that you are putting in the customer's mind like you can wait, contact us now and wait till tomorrow, or wait, sorry, not till tomorrow, till 6 months from now.
Yeah.
To get this done. And you mentioned you don't really do that. Is there a particular reason, or what do you think?
No, I mean, I think like the main reason is because I believe that somebody who's calling us in August for a painting quote isn't thinking about the painting that they want done in January and February. They're like, most people don't plan like that. They're thinking about, whatever over the weekend, I thought, or my spouse thought, or whatever, the walls in here look dingy. We should make them not look dingy. I wish I could wave my magic wand and my like HD TV snap of the fingers and just like fix this, but I can't. So like I hope Amazon can deliver it tomorrow, but I can't. So I'm going to call the painting company and I hope they can come out here in a week or two.
Mhm.
It's like most people aren't thinking, 6 months ahead.
No, true.
And so, but now we get to, so really what it is just like, I don't think it's going to work all that well. I think I'm going to get the same number of leads with different like marketing message, where there's maybe a different pain point that I want to like focus on. And so then we get, so instead of, I don't think it's going to draw the leads in. I do think I can draw the sales in once I have the lead with that sales rep having that conversation like I just described. It really just comes down to like marketing versus sales.
Right. One thing I think is difficult with it, and having been thinking about this for a while in terms of the marketing side, is that customers don't like. So you're absolutely right. Customers aren't thinking about the project 6 months from now. They're going to do. They want it kind of done yesterday. And marketing something like that, I think, brings up an idea that people just haven't really thought of before. And so not only are you dealing with like the need, but you're also trying to explain how to fulfill the need. And sometimes I think that's like conflicting messages. And so you have to be really careful on how you advertise it to make sure that the person understands what's going on. Or else they see it and they're just like, Christmas in July. Okay, what does that mean? Okay, if I wait, how many painting projects I got to get done in the next year? Okay. So like,
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of steps to it. Whereas I think what you're talking about is like, they already have the need, just give them the option.
Yeah.
And like, with that, I guess, would you try to advertise more during the summer months or less?
Yeah, so that's where like that is a huge part. Again, going back to like business owners part still. Um, we so we crank up marketing starting in August. So when we talk about like summer, to your question of like summer, I that's like a little maybe misleading. To us, August is like winter marketing. So we are not in August. We're generally not advertising for anything exterior. I think we're going to do a different episode on that because we're still going to be busy on exterior. I don't even need to advertise. We're probably close to booked up for the exterior season at that point. Hopefully not already, but like certainly start to think about it. And so I'm less concerned with driving exterior demand because there's just a big natural exterior demand. With like back to school, end of the season, there's this big sense of urgency. I don't really need to create anything. Where we spend a lot of money starting in August is advertising for interior and cabinet painting leads. And so we get a lot of them, and that gives our sales team a lot of opportunities to go have these conversations with people. So we intentionally turn down marketing like I would say May, June, and July to then like basically like save up that ammo, that like dry powder, if you will, of marketing money to go and really push hard in August, September, and October. We think of all of our winter marketing as August, September, October. And then we still do stuff. Like there's a baseline of marketing that's happening in November, very minimal stuff in December. It's like this, the only things we spend money on in December is the stuff that it would be really expensive to have to like turn back on. And then as we come out of December, we start to like dial things back up a little bit in January, and then February, like much more so, especially with home show season and things like that. That's pretty good understanding of how that like 6 to 8 months or whatever spend is thought of.
Gotcha.
Is that how you guys think of it? What are your thoughts?
I think, oh man, there's so many theories on this. Like I've talked to so many people with different ideas on how this works. I've come to realize that it's very hard to generate demand when people don't care. And so you said it earlier, which is that around the Christmas season or the holiday season, people aren't really thinking about that type of work. They've got their mind on other things. And trying to then advertise during a season when they're getting inundated with advertising, whether it's, Cyber Monday or Black Friday or all this stuff, like to compete with that as a trades business is really hard.
It's also expensive.
I think very expensive that time of year. So my conclusion has been just try to capture as much as you can when demand's high. And I think this strategy you're talking about is super helpful for capturing that demand and giving someone a price sensitive option for moving to the time when demand's lower. And so I think I'm on board with what you're saying. It feels weird, one, because you're like, I'm going to try to get more leads in this season when we're drowning in leads. But really, this is when the hard work pays off. This is when the hard work gives you that chance to win in the winter. And it's a little counterintuitive, but I'm on board. I'm sold on that concept. Yay.
I convinced one person I'm not crazy.
Like one person. And maybe your mom who's listening.
Even if she thinks I'm crazy, she would never tell me. So. Or at least maybe she would, probably. That's it in the nutshell. Is like there's a lot of demand in August and I want more of it. And our sales team better be like, way busy. And really selling stuff for winter.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's the goal.
Cool.
The other thing though, so just going back to sales reps, I think there's some really important conversations to be had about relationship building. And
absolutely.
You guys do a really good job with this. So this is something that we talk about a lot. And partially maybe because we keep them so busy with too many leads, air quotes, like whatever that means, in like August and September, where I would also like to have them like doing way too many quotes, but also really upping the like networking and relationship building and things like that, so that when they get to, let's call it maybe December and January, there might start to become some like fruit of those relationships where the realtor is like, oh, hey, like, yeah, we've become really good friends over these last 6 months. I've got a client who needs something painted. Can you help us out? Talk a little bit more about like your thoughts on maybe spending intentional time in the summer to like create and cultivate relationships with more of a long-term mindset.
Yeah, absolutely. So we came to that conclusion along several years ago, which is that people in the winter, they buy off relationship because it's interior work. And I think exterior work, it's easier to trust people who maybe you don't know around your home. But when you have people in your home, it's a little different. And so building these relationships is really hypercritical in order to get referrals, which when you get a referral, it's like an automatic trust signal. These guys are good, you can trust them, and people feel so much more at ease getting a referral for inside work. So we've asked anytime I've done sales coaching, I always say like you need to start setting a regular cadence of relationship building. And it can't just be when you need it. This stuff takes time. Like we're talking about months of effort here. You're planting the seeds now for something that might happen in January.
Yep.
And that can't stop ever. And so you have to build that into your schedule. In my opinion, you have to build it in your schedule because that's where you're going to get the bigger jobs in the winter. And you're going to be able to do it more consistently and at less of a cost. And so we encourage the teams, any sales reps I've coached, to set a weekly points tracker, like looking at your relationships, breaking up, what a relationship means into different point reward systems. So you know if you're doing enough work that week to achieve building relationships. And when you do that, you're going to see, especially when you do that like July, August, September, October, the results hit in January, February, March. So I know people are going to have varying opinions on that. Love to hear them, but I don't think that a good expectation for people who are selling painting projects is just wait for the leads. That's not where your best jobs come from. It's not where your highest win rates come from. That's not where the bigger projects come from. So yeah, I'm pretty passionate about that.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. So I think like the downside of that is like in a vacuum, your sales reps might do fewer estimates in a week in like the summer, let's just say, than maybe mine would, or somebody who's not maybe doing this as well, because your team is basically taking some time. You can maybe give us some more specifics here in, let's just say, like July and August, when they're busy. Like there's not like, hey, we're slow, let's fill this time with something. But they're basically saying is, I'm only willing to do X number of quotes this week, because if I did more than that, that would cut into the time I need to go and be intentional about building some of these relationships. That
Absolutely, yeah. And I've always been a big advocate for less estimates.
What's the number that you think, is like the sweet spot for your team, or how do you guys like give some specifics here?
So it's really relevant to how long you've been doing it.
Okay.
If you're a newer rep, you should be out there just getting reps. You're doing lower value jobs, ones that are maybe less likely to close, but you need to learn the system and how to talk to customers.
Okay.
And so in that period of time, you're like, let's just do four a day, 4 or 5 a day. Like just crush out those jobs that maybe we not really want.
Yeah.
But then you start building your network. And network building is really that key that we're talking about that unlocks those jobs that just wouldn't come your way from a regular lead line. And once you get to that point, we've seen that like 10 to 12 estimates a week seem to be a really good sweet spot. And oftentimes those estimates that you're doing are based off of relationship. So there's this transition from the start of just taking leads from the company that moves into, I'd like to do my own leads because I'm going to win more. I might, of those 12 estimates, I might get 8. Whereas if I go and do all of those 20, I might also get 8. Right? So if you're kind of winning at that 40, 50% that we see as being top performers are achieving those rates, you can use your time a whole lot more efficiently once you build relationships. And then it's just a self-fulfilling prophecy that you end up like having more time to spend with your customers, build more relationships, get better estimates. As you do that, we've seen incredible results from people that are doing way fewer estimates, but bigger jobs, higher win rates, built off trust. And I don't think as a business owner, it really matters. In fact, I'd prefer if it was less
You're
leads,
spending less on
higher
marketing.
close. Exactly, less on marketing. Everybody's winning at that point. So that's what we've seen. I don't know. Do you have any perspective on that for a number of estimates?
I mean, we do more than that. And again, this
Yeah.
is, it's a chicken and the egg thing. We're good at generating leads. We're not good at generating like those relationship referral type things. We get referrals from past customers, and we get some from like relationships, but not to the same level that you guys do. And so then we're really good at getting more of those, like, whatever, flyers and Googles and Facebooks and all the other things, all those leads. And then we're like, oh man, we got so many of these, we better have our sales team go do them. And now they don't have time to try to do the other things, / they don't want to. And it's a little bit of both. I think the biggest thing that stands out to me though is the self-discipline it takes, because you don't have to be very self-disciplined as a sales rep. If you've got 20 estimates on your calendar, like, you're going to just be busy. Just go whatever, 4 estimates a day, 5 days a week. You're just going. Like, you just go wherever the calendar tells you to go, and you're going to be just fine. It's almost like, high school or whatever. When you're a high school student, you just like go to the next class. You're just busy. Really can't get in that much trouble. And then you get to college, and there's like all this time, and nobody's really paying that much attention. And if you want, like, you don't even have to go to class because nobody's really paying attention. And like for sales reps, if you said, hey, look, you only have like 1 or 2 estimates on your calendar today, so you can use that other time to like go and make some calls and build some relationships and like knock on doors and, stop by the real estate office with some donuts or whatever. It takes some discipline, because stopping at that real estate office for a lot of people might not be comfortable, especially if you're just kind of getting started with it. And probably not going to like help you hit your sales goal for this month. It's going to help you hit your sales goal, like we're talking about, maybe in 3 to 6 months from now. And just like it's hard for customers to think, what's my painting project for 3 to 6 months? I think it's hard for everybody, sales reps included, to think, what are the activities I could do today that would make my life easier 3 to 6 months from now?
Absolutely. And that's why it has to be built into the system, right? Like, I think a lot of people I talk to say, well, I don't expect that from my reps. And my argument is like, well, it's better for everybody.
Yep.
So maybe we should all talk and figure out what we can do here to make it better. And what we've just figured out is that you have to create this cadence where you have to report on this. It can't be a do it if you want to. Kind of like that college example of like, you can choose to do it. Here's all your free time. It's like, well, I just went and played video games my entire college career, and then I realized I got to get better grades. So
right, I failed out.
I packed all of my courses into 2 days, Michael. I don't know if I told you this, but I had this friend that was like, here's a secret hack to college. Just put all of your classes on Tuesday, Thursday. And so I did that. And you get like, I had an amazing ski life. Like, I was snowboarding all the time and completely forgot about school, like 100%. Then you get your grades back and you're like, oof, do C's get degrees? I don't know. It doesn't feel great. And so
this is how John ended up in the painting industry.
Exactly. Yeah. So so I learned that lesson firsthand. And I think that once I actually started going to school on 5 days a week, my grades just got infinitely better because I didn't forget about it. And so we've had to build that into the sales process for our sales reps, is that they have to find a way to do this, and it has to be front of mind every week. And it can't just be like did you do this? Yeah. It has to be show the plan, what you did every week. Give us your performance, because every time we check in, you got to have something, and we're measuring this. And what's interesting is that when you do the activity, you get the reward. It's not this crazy thing. Like, we run painting businesses. Like, people need painting. If you just go talk to people and tell them what you do, surprise, surprise, they remember you and they come back. And as long as you service them well, that's going to be great. And so it's incredible to see that activity equals results. We have not been proven wrong in that.
Most people suck at internal accountability. They need external accountability. And if you need evidence of that, just like go and ask people about like their diet and fitness goals and how well they are at doing that. And like what I hear you saying is just like, most people need a personal trainer or a buddy that's going to say, hey, like, you're getting your butt to the gym today and let's go. And that's like where your sales coach has to hold people accountable to hitting activities that they need to be doing. I 100% agree.
Exactly. So,
and I resonate with your college example. I had a botany class at 8 a.m. I think it was 3 days a week when I was a freshman, and it was on the other side of campus. And they didn't take attendance. And it wasn't too bad in September, but once we got to like December, I didn't go that much, and I did not do that well in that class.
Surprise, surprise!
I think I got a D.
It's one letter off an F, isn't it?
Yeah, I think I did like just enough. My grades weren't so great my freshman year. Like, this is stupid. Why do I have to take this class?
We were all learning. They only count the last 20 courses, right? That's what I was told for your GPA.
I've never once been asked as an adult what my GPA was.
Let me ask you now, what was your GPA?
I don't know, to be honest with you. It was less than a 3.
Less than a 3.
I think. So, I don't even remember. It might have been like a low 3. I just remember it started really bad, and I had like 3.5 years to go back up out of the hole. I think I had less than a 2.5 after my first semester.
That was my experience.
I have some funny stories about how I thought I had the whole system figured out and just kept digging myself a bigger hole. And it was like, you know what? How about I just like study enough to actually get a decent grade and go to class? It took me like 3 or 4 semesters to figure that one out. Stop trying to game the system.
Cool. Well, let's wrap it up there.
I think everybody's done with us.
Next episode is John and Michael's college lives. Yeah, that's.
I was running a painting business, so I was always the first one to go home at the bar. I got estimates in the morning. See y'all.
Lucky you.
Kept me out of trouble.
Well, guys, thanks for tuning in to Price Sell Paint. As always, feel free to give us a like and subscribe if you enjoy the content.
Or don't. You know what? It's like, what? Don't. Whatever. Be that guy. You don't have to.
Exactly. Don't do it. So we appreciate doing this. Give us any feedback, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Michael.
See ya.
This podcast is proudly powered by PaintScout, your partner in painting success.